I do want to bring in Ron Snoffer, who is a property insurance expert based out of Dallas. Ron, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
Yes, and so I did want to ask you this because a lot of people are being urged to evacuate. A lot of people now maybe thinking for the very first time about home insurance, property insurance during a disaster such as this. What should people know as they prepare?
One of the big things that you mentioned was the evacuation routes. The Texas Department of Transportation has online what your evacuation routes are based on what counties you're in the coastal line areas. You can go to that and find out which routes you need to take in order to get to safety.
And that's really important because a lot of people may not even know what their evacuation route is. Most times, we have a pattern when it comes to traveling and getting from point A to point B, but that evacuation route might be different from the roads folks are, used to taking right here. When it comes to preparing your property and making sure that all of the necessary legalities and documents are in place, is it too late? What can people do?
It's never too late. People can use their cell phones to document the condition of their property before the storm came in. That way, they'll have um, a log of what the pictures look like before the damage occurred. Goes a long way when you're having to file a claim. You can show the before and after of what your property looked like.
And that's so important because these insurance companies, if you haven't done so, said, well, we don't know, that damage might have already been there. You can't prove it. And so, as you mentioned, having the photographic evidence is so important. Would you recommend folks taking photos and videos of the outside of the property, but also the inside of the property? How extensive does this need to be?
It's as simple as turning on your video camera and walking around the outside of your property, and then once again, walking around the inside of your property. You're going to document the condition of not only your property, but also your contents that you have before the storm event happened.
And also, another really important point is that people might not realize this, but taking photographs or video of your roof if possible, because again, there might be some roof damage to that as well. So that is such great advice. Also, questions that homeowners need to be asking. What types of questions should folks need to be asking? Who should they be asking those questions to when it comes to protecting property?
So one of the big things that you're going to want to ask is, do you have enough damage that's above your deductible, and whether or not you should even be filing a claim? You can generally find out from a local contractor if you don't have a contractor that you trust. The Texas Association of Public Insurance Adjusters has a gambit of a couple hundred public adjusters that will come out and identify whether or not you have enough damage to even file a claim.
And that's also really important. And can you kind of go more into that? Because sometimes it actually could hurt you in the long run to file a claim that's not worth it, because could, at least in Florida, there have been a lot of issues with insurance companies dropping folks.
Oh yeah, you never want to file a claim if it's going to be below your deductible, because you're responsible for that first portion, your deductible, on the claim. So if you have a $10,000 deductible and you only have $5,000 worth of damage, your insurance isn't going to take on that responsibility or that burden. It's all falls on the property owner to pay that first $10,000 or whatever your deductible is based on the property.
You were mentioning taking photographic or video evidence just in terms of the outside, but also the inside of your home, the belongings, the contents that you have. What other information do you need to have on hand? Should folks have on hand as they prepare for Beryl to make landfall?
They should make sure that they have batteries and flashlights, supplies of food, supplies of fresh water. All those things are going to come into uh, emergency response when you don't have access to that stuff. You could lose power, you could lose water. When flooding happens, which we see that a lot with these types of hurricanes, especially in the Houston flatlands, there's not the ability to have food or access to water after something like that happens.
As a property insurance expert, what are the things that really catch folks most off guard that people aren't prepared for?
Well, one of the big ones is flood insurance. Most properties here in Texas don't have flood insurance. So you're going to be covered by FEMA versus your insurance company. And you're going to be capped at what that flood insurance is of $250,000. So if you have a building that gets hit by the flood, FEMA is going to take care of the flood portion of it versus if it gets knocked down by a tornado or high winds, then your insurance company is going to pay for it.
Ron, anything else that you really want to highlight to our Live Now from Fox viewers, as many people in Texas are just preparing and making sure that they have everything in place before the storm hits?
Usually, if you're prepared, you'll make better decisions after the storm happens. If you don't prepare in advance, you're going to make poor decisions and you're going to make emotional decisions. When you're making emotional decisions, you generally will make bad decisions. So make sure you spend a little bit of time preparing for what is going to happen and make sure you know what to do as far as evacuation and you have your safety protocols in place.
You and I have been talking about how to prepare, but after the storm passes, is there anything that folks need to do when it comes to their property and property insurance?
Once again, you're going to need to document any damage that you have. If you do end up with a flood and your contents are damaged, you're going to need to document and take pictures of all that damage to your contents. You can't just throw away that stuff before the insurance company comes out and makes a decision on whether or not it's completely totaled or whether or not they think it might be salvageable. So take those pictures and make sure you have your documents, keep your receipts for any temporary repairs. You have to have board up, tarps, anything like that. Keep your receipts.
And that's so important because I think people's first inclination is to get everything cleaned up, but you may need to almost preserve evidence or at least document it because, if the insurance company doesn't see it, it's almost as though it never existed. So some really important points there, Ron. Any final thoughts before we let you go?
Be safe. This is just the beginning of storm season. This is the earliest we've seen a hurricane this far north in the Gulf in a long time. So be safe. It could be a long season this year.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ron, for taking the time to join us on this Sunday. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.